Well, good morning, everybody. I want you to feel welcome to the special call work session today of Board of Commissioners. I apologize for being a few minutes late here. We had a lot of moving pieces going on in this county right now, 750,000 people, and the commissioners were involved in some major programs this morning. But today we're about to talk about another really important part, and that, of course, is the proposal regarding the future use of the recreational and sports tourism service fee. So I'm going to let I think I'm gonna let Bill Volkman start this one. All right. Because he wasn't ready for this. But just to give background for those that are watching, we have a hotel motel tax, a special $3 tax that's part of the overall agreement associated with our partnership with the Braves.
Yes, sir. This is part of the Cumberland Special Service District 1, and we do have a $3 room night fee that has got to be used within the district, and that can be used to enhance government services within the specific district.
Okay. And Commissioner Ott and I had been several discussions with several of the hotel motel owners, along with other people over at the Special Service District, as the best way to use this fee that supports their program and also addresses some of the concerns that we have here. So I wanted to make sure the commissioners saw have a discussion about this issue, which is why I asked to have this at a work session. So Commissioner Ott, did you have some comments you'd like to start out with today?
Sure, if they don't have a lot of guests in the hotel. No, as the chairman said, myself and the chairman met with the hotel council. And, one of the things that people don't realize, and we have this discussion when we talk about Circulator, is that the $3 per night per room is basically given by the hotels. And they were told back when the whole discussions happened in 2013, 2014, that they would have a say in how the money was spent. And it came to my attention beginning of last year that had not happened. And so we've been having discussions on what needed to happen. And then when I was a member of the Cobb Travel Tourism Board, I know that Holly doesn't have enough money, especially compared to the other counties in the area. So one of the efforts has been to try to get this money headed in Holly's direction. So, and I think Joe has a presentation for the board.
So with that, Mr. Yule, you have the floor. Welcome.
Well, good afternoon and thank you. First of all, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Ott, really want to thank you for your guidance and for inviting us here to come and to share our thoughts around how we would spend the money that is being raised through our hotels in this special district. I also want to thank the whole board for allowing us the opportunity to share these thoughts with you. But I also want to thank all of the hoteliers that are in the room that are part of the Cobb Hotel Council and are part of AHOA who have come to join us in support. Really appreciate all of you taking your time out. Before we get started, I want to recognize and thank you for listening and taking action on the concerns that we had with the Circulator. Recently, changes have been made. The routes have been rerun and now are serving 21 hotels of the 31, which is far better. The Circulator is now free, which we think is going to increase ridership and make it a much more effective form of transportation. And of course, the new route times. So here is the history. And as Commissioner Ott mentioned, in 13-14, when this whole idea came about, and when Commissioner then, Chairman Lee, came to us with this idea, it was always intended to have a strong ROI. And that's why the Circulator made so much sense to all of us. So we agreed, approved, and you can see here the history of how that money has been used. Of course, in the first couple of years, there was no Circulator, so all of the funding went towards the debt service. And then in 2017, the first year, $600,000 was utilized to pay for the Circulator, and as it is going into this year. I really want to make it clear that we see the Brave Stadium and the Battery as an enormous benefit to the area and are not opposed to being involved in assisting in paying for that through taxes. But I do want to call your attention to the fact that we are paying this in 4 different ways currently. The first is we're paying for it through the Special Services District 1, which is the $3 fee. And as you saw on the previous slide, since its beginning, we've paid almost $10 million into debt service. The second is the Cumberland Special Services District 2, which all businesses pay, and we are one of them. The county's portion of the hotel motel tax, some of that goes towards the debt, and then all of the 31 hotels are in the CID, and there has been a portion of that that has been going towards infrastructure. So how should the $3 fee be invested? From our perspective, we would like to see it have a return on investment. We want to continue to invest in Cumberland County and, Cobb County. The Circulator will always be a part of that, but then we think the remainder of the money should go into the tourism and sales marketing engine, which is our Cobb Travel and Tourism. This organization is the biggest and most important sales engine we have to Cobb County. And we have so many fantastic amenities that we should be marketing and that we should be selling. And as Commissioner Ott, you mentioned, Hawley's budget is nowhere near where it should be. It's a fraction of what other like-size tour and travel entities have. But I also want to, drive home the point that what we want to see, the money that goes into Cobb Tour and Travel would be directly benefited at the CID area, the 31 hotels. But by doing that, it will free up other monies within her budget that could be used in the other districts and in the county. And so this move would benefit all of Cobb County, not just our area in, around the stadium. So here's the proposal. And the way that we looked at this was breaking it up, just taking $3 and breaking it up into pieces. Our intent is that as the battery and the stadium grow to completion, that they will be able to generate more and more tax revenue every year. I know that last year, the valuation was $304 million over where it was the year before. And Mike Plant said at the end of 2017 that it was only 30% built out. By the end of this year, it's going to be 70% built out. And then, next year it will be completed. So imagine what the potential is there to generate more tax revenue to pay for the things that are really needed around the stadium, which we don't disagree, but we think it needs to be self-sustained. So what we came up with was a proposal that would continue to help fund the things that are important, like the debt stadium or the stadium debt, to get it up and running, as well as the police, but slowly come off of that as the battery reaches completion. So you can see by this scale that in 2022, the money that is not being spent on the Circulator would all go to Cobb Tour and Travel. So in this future investment, specifically what we would focus on is marketing, promotion, and sales. And of course, we all understand marketing and promotion is very hard to measure, but some people think that tourists just come. They don't. You have to get the word out. You have to go and find them. There are feeder markets. We don't have nearly enough marketing happening for our areas. And sales, if we are able to make this happen, we will be able to hire more manpower, we will be able to attend more trade shows, we will be able to be much more specific and thorough in the solicitation of both group business and tourism. One of the things that gets thrown around a bit is bid fees. And I want to highlight this as being one of the biggest areas of opportunity. In order to compete for large conventions in today's world, you have to be prepared to pay a bid fee or to get creative with your bid. These are some organizations, just to name a few, that require a bid fee, and Cobb Travel and Tourism doesn't have any money for that. Smite is a group that we had for 4 years. They were very happy with us, and we just lost them to the ACVB. The ACVB paid them $24,000. That's all they needed. In order to be competitive, they asked us if we could match it, and we couldn't come up with the money, and so they left, and they're now going downtown for 2018, and that business for $24,000 had a $2.8 million economic impact. That is one example. If we can't compete with bid fees, we're not going to win. And we have to be able to give Holly more revenue, more money to work with. So in short, our theory is invest in Cobb Tour and Travel. Market and sales effort will yield more visitors, which drives more hotel rooms, more revenue for Cobb County, and it just continues to feed the cycle. For every 1% increase in occupancy at the current average daily rate, there's an additional $372,000 in Cobb County hotel motel tax collections. For every $1 spent in our hotels, $3 are spent in the community. So it's not just a hotel-related plan. A typical hotel with 100 rooms supports about 250 local jobs every year, and Cobb County has 124 hotels and more than 13,000 hotel rooms. Each Cobb County household would need to be taxed an additional $461 per year to replace the taxes generated by tourism. Thank you very much for your time. I hope I didn't exceed my 10 minutes. I know we were a little tight today, but we really do appreciate it. It means a lot to be able to come here and share our ideas with you.
If you could go back to that slide that had the breakout of your proposed use of the $3. There you go. Thank you. Commissioner Ott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And one of the things Joe and I talked about, and I know our 2 meetings with the Hotel Association, I don't think that this board fully understood what had been going on prior with the fact that all of the money was going towards the debt service. So obviously, as we wean the debt service off of the $3, that void has to be filled. And as Joe pointed out, ideally that'll be filled by the increased valuation in the battery, which, ultimately is projected to be up around $750 million in value. So just when you do the math with the 40% and the things like that, that's about $1.2 million in additional tax revenue. Obviously, I know the point of contention in the discussions we had was about the police, and that was always kind of viewed as a short-term fix, because if it wasn't coming from here, then it was going to come from the general fund, and so it's a balancing act. The biggest issue that we had talked about, and I think both the chairman and I agreed, was we had to get more money to Holly, to Cobb Travel and Tourism. And so it was a matter of kind of realigning the books and the numbers and trying to get to that point. Obviously, as we move forward and see what the actual numbers are, right now, a lot of times we're dealing on projections from finance and all that. But I appreciate the dialogue. I don't think that there was as much as there should have been, but, I think now that we have a lot better dialogue.
Commissioner Weatherford.
Thank you. Great presentation, Joe. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And I think I totally support the concept. I obviously totally support Cobb Travel and Tourism. The only concern I have is whether or not this timeline fits our financial obligations that we may have set up already in the general fund. And I don't know, something Bill has to work with. I assume you're familiar with all this, Bill, right?
And Commissioner Weatherford, one of the things that Joe and I talked about was, I think on the debt side, that was kind of the discussions that we had when we first started this discussion about moving the money over to Cobb Travel and Tourism. The police one is the one that we have to that might, as I mentioned to Joe, that might take a little bit longer to work our way towards that, because one of the things we're looking at right now is potentially.
So this
putting it out
gives
for
you
RFP.
time to adequately prepare for this or whatever?
So just to kind of give you an overview, in 2018, we have budgeted $2.5 million to go towards debt service. So if this was implemented at this schedule, you'd have 1.2, so you'd have some gaps to fill. But as Commissioner
Quite a
Ott
big
said,
gap, right?
we'd have a gap to fill. But we'll also get the evaluation for Cumberland Special Service District 2, see what that could be used for. And we do have some additional areas, and I know the chairman wants to talk about that at the retreat, of how we fund the debt service going forward. So I think that will be part of the overall conversation. But as I think Commissioner Ott said, this would have to be a phased-in approach, obviously.
And I totally agree. I'm just wondering if the phase-in needs to be different, in order to make, we already fit it, we already have a hole.
Yes, yes,
This
sir.
gives us a
We
bigger
do.
hole.
And I think it's going to determine on what other sources that we would like to use to fund the debt service. And obviously, that'll be at the board's discretion. We talked about the countywide hotel motel fund. We currently budget 1.7. Last year, we collected roughly 2 million, and that's coming in better than it did last year. So you do have some flexibility there that could be used to address some of this shortfall that this would potentially create. And the overall growth in CSSD too would be another area that we could look at. So
So it's workable.
it is. I think a phased-in approach is definitely workable. We just need to discuss of how the board would like to fill that hole as we move forward.
And I guess all I'm saying is we may have to work back and forth a little bit to make sure that we don't have a bigger hole here by filling this hole over here, for the better of the whole budget cycle. But I'm in complete support of this concept, so thank you.
Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you. I would like to have future discussions once we've had, because this is the first I've seen of this, and it's not Holly's fault. She's tried to get with me, but it's a little crazy right now.
Yeah.
So, and maybe a comparison with the different service districts and where our shortfall is, and because we did discuss, pulling the police traffic control out of the $3 fee. But then it goes away after 2 years, so there's some questions and some things I'd like to look at and discuss.
Okay.
But thank you, very good presentation. And can we have this slide and the whole presentation
Of course.
electronically?
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
if I don't know if it could be transferred, but you loaded it, so we're good. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so in 2018, it has Cobb Tours and Travel getting $1 out of that. And that's already, we're already doing that, or that's proposed?
Yeah,
That's proposed.
that's correct, yeah.
So
Cobb
she's
Tour
not
Travel
getting
is
another
nothing right now.
she's not getting $1.2 million out of that yet.
No, she is
No,
not.
there's no money right now
Okay.
to travel and tourism out of that.
So where's Holly?
Because, Mr. Chairman, basically, right now, the $3 is paying for debt service and the circulator and police. And that's it. And the county gives, I think, it's $40,000 a year, I think,
No.
to
It's
Holly.
not paying for police.
All right, so I'm gonna, hate to do this to you, but
That's all right.
I'm gonna have to do it to you, all right? The good news is that clearly you're gonna get more resources, okay? What I'm gonna ask you to do is get back with us to see if we can't reduce the slope a little bit on what you get over the next, as we slowly ramp you up, if we could change the slope on that ramp. Because the real issue that's gonna be here, and I made this very clear to all the hotel motel owners, is that what is the price of public safety? And I firmly believe that if we can provide an environment where people know they can come and safely use this place, then that's a benefit, economic benefit to you. So I guess my question to hotel owners is, how much are you willing to pay for that measure of economic success? Because we could simply do what we do in all the other districts around here, provide you the 2 policemen, provide each of the beats around here to do the public safety in this area that you're gonna benefit from. If people knew how thin our blue line was, they would be shocked. But this is gonna have a dense area, and as your circle showed, Joe, you're gonna bring more and more people into this area, which is good. But more and more people require, a plus up of public safety. And what I'm asking for you is, can we be partners in this? Because I don't want to sit here and play, the numbers game. I want to do this in a way that's going to continue to create an atmosphere where people are going to want to come here because they don't have to worry about anything while they're in this area. And so what I'll be doing is asking us to sit back down here, just take a look at this chart to see if we can find some way to address some of the concerns that I've heard on both sides of me here, that we all reach a consensus on a number where we all get something out of this, all right? The good news is that after only 18 months, you've reversed my thought about this program, all right? And I'm complete support of it.
Thank you.
So, and Joe, I really want to thank you for taking the lead on this.
Yes, you're welcome.
I really mean that. You know, this is something where, you know, from day one, you've shown a spirit of cooperation as the hotel owners are. And I think as long as we continue to discuss this in that atmosphere, we're all going to be winners. So thank you for all your work here and being patient as we work through a political process, which at its best is ponderous.
Okay.
But again, thank you for your time, and we're going to be back to you very shortly on this. So again, I also want to thank all the hotel motels for coming out today and working with us. This is truly going to be a place in Georgia because they're going to see that we do this together as a team, and we're all in this together to make sure it's a success. So thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate it.
Chairman. Could I ask,
Sure.
I have not been through this process before, so what is the next steps?
Well, what we'll do is on June 12th, we're having a retreat, the board, and this will be one of the issues that we'll bring up at that time. But in the meantime, Commissioner Ott will be sitting down with you and Holly to see about this chart, and they'll bring that forth at the board as a proposal, and then we'll talk about it there. As people see now, I like to start discussions, all right? But then I like to have the commissioners finish that discussion where we reach a consensus on how we want to do that. And then we'll come back to you about what we think the board can support.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, along that lines, one of the things that Joe and I talked about on Friday, the circulator cost is actually, right now, we're forecasting it at 800,000, not the 914. So already
Okay.
some of the numbers are changing. You know, obviously last year it was not operating the full year. And it was 600,000, I think, last year. And so right now we're estimating 800, but really until we go through the full year of only 2 routes instead of the 3 routes, and we'll have a better idea. But right now, because we want to try to give Holly some monetary injection before the end of the year. So just to kind of get started. But yeah, we'll keep talking about it.
Okay.
And like I committed earlier, I will continue to come to your association meetings whenever you want to discuss something.
Okay. And then if I can, just one other
Sure.
comment, I just want to
Absolutely.
answer the question that you were asking as far as the police and the necessity of that. And I want you to know that every hotelier in this room agrees on the importance of safety, and we recognize how important it is to be able to do that effectively. We just also feel that we're paying into that 4 different
Right.
ways.
Right.
And we would just like to see some consideration to allow us to take from this $3 fee and put it to work for us,
Right.
which will benefit all of us.
And that's why we have this discussion. All right, the beauty of what we're doing here is, okay, we got something on the table, now we can work with it. But I sense that we're all gonna find an answer that's gonna work.
Good.
But then again, my number and everything is 3. I gotta convince 2 other commissioners to agree with me on that, so.
Okay.
But I appreciate your time in
Yeah.
bringing this out. Commissioner Burrow, you had a point?
Just, I guess, a comment. The $3 hotel motel fee for the special service district is just Cumberland. It's not countywide.
That's
So
correct.
these are all hotels, motels from the Cumberland district
No,
area.
they're actually from all over, because what we were presenting has an impact on every district in the county. Because by infusing this money into the CID area, which is where it's generated, it frees up money to be spent in the other areas. So they have a vested interest in this too, and would like to see this move forward.
But I'm just saying, they're not paying they're not charging the
That's
$3
right.
fee, just in the Cumberland area.
That's right.
I
Thanks.
think, Mr. Chairman, one of the things too, and Joe and I talked about this, is that the way the $3 special service district is set up, the money has to be spent in the Cumberland boundaries. Well, one of the things that, because Holly's office is located in the special service district, all the personnel that get hired, additional personnel that can get hired by this additional money, are technically inside the service district. And those people are not just working for the hotels, and that's where Joe's coming from. They're not working for just the hotels in the special service district, but because Holly's office is in the district, that meets the requirement to spend the money in the district. But it then allows Holly to go further out. And the 40,000 that the county has given to Cobb Travel and Tourism in the past now is $40,000 that no longer has to be spent specifically in the special service district. So those are the two ways that it benefits the rest of the county.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Holly, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
And those of you that are CPAs or budgeteers, you want to stay for the second part, we're going to get into the financial report. You're welcome to stay.
Scooted them all out of here. Do I have to stay?
Yes, you have to stay. And thank you for coming today. We appreciate your attendance.
That's great.
Hey, Nick. Good seeing you. Welcome back. Jim up. Okay, Bill.
All right, sir, the second item and last item for today, I just want to introduce Tammy Galvis with Nichols McCauley. She's going to come up and do the 2017 audit presentation for Cobb County. She's been with the county as our external auditor. Her and her firm have been with them for a very long time, so try to be nice to her. We would like to keep her around. All right. Thanks, Nick.
Good morning.
Good
Thank
morning.
you very much.
Welcome.
I seem to have cleared the room, looks like. Thank you this morning for asking us to come and present to you. Thanks also to Bill and his staff, as well as staff throughout the county, for their cooperation and assistance during the audit, because of course we speak to many different departments and different levels throughout the county. I'm sorry. And then also this morning I'd like to thank Jenny Harris. She is the audit manager on the job and is here this morning as well in case you have any questions. This morning I'm presenting the results of the financial audit, which was issued in March, and we did issue a clean or unmodified opinion, which means we believe the financial statements are fairly stated. And that report has been submitted to the State of Georgia Department of Audits, which is required by state law, and has been submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association, where we believe it will receive the Certificate of Financial Achievement again this year. And just as a reminder, the report that you receive every year with the financial results also includes the component units, which is the Galleria and the Board of Health. So when you're looking at the documents, just keep in mind those numbers are included there as well. And the first slide I have for you this morning is a snapshot of the general fund revenues for the fiscal year. Total revenues in the general fund increased by $15 million over prior year to a total of $356 million. The two largest components of that, of course, are your taxes, which were 74% of your total revenues, or $262 million, and your charges for services, which were $44.9 million for the fiscal year. General fund expenditures increased $17 million over the prior year to a total of $359 million. The primary category there is your public safety, which was 44% of your expenditures, or $158 million. And your general government expenditures was the second largest expenditure of $136 million, or 38%. Overall results for the general fund for the fiscal year, a net change in fund balance of a decrease of $12.5 million for a total fund balance at the end of year of $90.1 million. And of that $90.1 million, $70.7 million is your unassigned fund balance, which is about 78% of your total fund balance. The fire fund results for the fiscal year, the total change in fund balance was a decrease of $1.4 million. Revenues were up in this fund for the fiscal year, but so were expenditures as you relocated a firehouse, and then you also purchased property for a new fire station. Total fund balance at the end of the year in that fund was $33.8 million. The next slide is the SPLOST fund results, and in this fund is where the 3 current SPLOST projects are funding through. And just for reference, there's a schedule on page 159 of the audit report that includes a breakdown of those 3 different SPLOST years and what the projects are and what your cumulative expenditures and your current expenditures are. Net change in fund balance for the fiscal year was a decrease of $1.2 million and an overall fund balance at the end of the year of $184 million. The next slide is the water sewer fund. The water sewer fund for the fiscal year had revenues of $203 million, operating expenses of $186 million, for a net operating income of $17 million, and overall, after transfers and non-operating revenues and expenses, the fund ended the year with $8 million in income.
For the water fund here, for the net operating income, this is in thousands, right? Okay, all right, so it's
Correct.
$203 million.
Correct.
So we exceeded, we had income of $17 million this year? Net income of $17 million?
Net operating income,
Right.
that's before any non-operating type items. So that just includes your operating plus depreciation expenses in that number. Overall, the fund ended the year with $8 million in income.
Interesting.
After the transfer.
Yeah.
The net.
So what's fund balance in the water sewer fund?
Just a second. Equity in the water sewer fund was $1.3 billion at the end of the year.
Okay,
It's not cash on hand.
yeah, that's equity, but do we have an idea like what fund balance would be? Cash on hand, yeah, whatever the right term is for a water enterprise? Well, I was just curious. We talked about fund balance and everything else. I just didn't see it in the water sewer fund. I was just curious why we didn't have that column, that category.
Yeah, for the fiscal year, the total net position of the fund was $1.347 billion, and of that, 1.3 is the investment in your fixed assets for that fund.
Right?
So you have another $48 million that's reserved or restricted for capital projects
Okay.
per your bond documents.
Okay,
So really, your unrestricted fund balance is a deficit of $4.5 million. So
You
it's
are.
all committed in some way.
That's what Steve wanted us to hear.
Yeah, Commissioner Weatherford?
No.
Okay, all right. I was just curious. All right, thanks.
And Bill, will we have a copy of this too?
Yes.
So did you see any practices you have any concerns about?
We are actually in the process of completing the compliance part of the audit, which is the audit of the federal awards. And at the conclusion of that, we will have a separate audit report that's issued with any recommendations, findings, as well as an additional letter. We will have a couple of items in there as a result of the audit this year. And that will be under a separate cover, but it should be issued by the end of this month.
Okay, so do you know what those are, Bill?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, any questions from the board? Thank you, I appreciate your hard work. And with that, we're adjourned.